Thank everybody for coming. We are going to talk about slap tongue. I'm going to first uh, talk about a little bit what actually is happening when you slap tongue and what's going on, and demonstrate a few of the different types of slaps. Then Stephanie is going to go over some technical things about how to actually do it. And then we will break out into breakout rooms, and so we can do some smaller group things of trying to for people who are still struggling with it, because it takes a long time, to be honest. I think it took me about 3 years before I could successfully do it, which was like a year of about a year or two of me struggling by myself, just trying to figure it out, and then getting some actual instruction, and finally starting to get it, and then like still a whole nother year before I felt I could really confidently do it on demand whenever I wanted to. Um, some people just do it immediately, and they're very lucky. But so yeah, don't get frustrated if it's not coming right away. But we're going to do our best to try to get you at least get you all the tools that you need to be able to keep working on it. So what? So slap tongue. In case anybody doesn't know, a slap tongue is the sound of the reed actually slapping on the mouthpiece. Okay, so first discuss what's actually happening. So what you're hearing, that slap sound, is actually the reed slapping on the reed, on the mouthpiece. And the way that's happening is with your tongue. Your tongue is pulling that reed off, and it slaps back against the mouthpiece. And what I think it's good to think of a slap tongue. It's just another type of articulation. So it's just like starting a note like any other note. And I can alternate between a slap and a normal articulation. So there's a few different types of slaps that I kind of recognize. Um, Different people have different names for these, but the first I call a tone slap, which is really I'm just playing a note but starting that note with a slap tongue. So it has a slap and then it continues with the actual note. Another one is a staccato slap, where I'm stopping the note right after the slap. You're not it's still a pitched thing, but you're not getting you're not holding on to the note and getting that resonance. So you can still hear that you're still getting all the pitch and everything, but it's just I'm just immediately stopping the sound after the slap. Another one is an open slap. So this is there's a little bit of pitch in this, but not nearly as much. Um, so that with that one, I'm just what's happening is the reed is still slapping, but it's not vibrating. So that's what's happening in the pitched slaps is you get the slap, but then the reed still vibrates to create pitch. With this one, my tongue is suctioning on the reed and letting it slap back, but I'm still using air, a little bit of air to make that happen, but not enough air to make the reed actually vibrate and create a pitch. Um, Another thing that one that you can do is you can slap while playing subtone. So like that's kind of in the same more like the first one I showed, the tone slap. It's the same sort of thing, but it's just by kind of underblowing and getting that subtone sound, you can still get the slap articulation at the beginning of that. And then another one is just I just kind of call it a reed slap, where um, I'm not really putting any air behind it at all. This is really just the sound of the reed suctioning to my tongue and slapping against the mouthpiece, but without really using any air behind it. So there's very little pitch. It's a lot quieter, um, but it's really just just the sound of the reed kind of slapping back, which is kind of for me one of the first steps to getting to the actual slap tongue. Um, so yeah, I would say in general, the bigger the instrument, the easier this is to do. On the contrabass clarinet, it's quite easy, and I can do repeated slaps much more quickly on the contra with just there's more surface area for the reed and to suction on my tongue, and that's a lot easier. Most people don't have access to contrabass clarinets probably, and I think most people when they're coming to learn slap tongue, it's because of the bass clarinet. Um, but once you kind of learn the mechanics of it, like it's the same on B flat clarinet. It's you have to learn to to change kind of your tongue position a bit more to get the reed to suction um, as well, and it's not as easy, but it's completely possible to do even on E flat clarinet. Um, so it's so even if you don't have a large clarinet with you now, that's fine. You can use whatever clarinet you have, but you will find that it is quite a bit easier with larger reed and larger mouthpiece to work with. Also, saxophone. I find it's quite easy to slap tongue on saxophone generally. I think has to do with the longer tends to be longer facings, and more you more area for the reed to actually slap. Um, Generally, I would say softer reeds and more open mouthpieces will also help in this process. So if you have softer reeds, open tip mouthpieces, try those. Um, some people like to try to learn on synthetic reeds because they don't want to break their reeds, their cane reeds. Um, it also works. It's fine. Like I mean, I think some people may have different opinions, but I mean, I can slap on synthetic reeds as well. It all works. So kind of whatever you have. I guess if you are trying synthetic and it's not working, you could also maybe try cane just to see. And the main thing, I think Stefanie will kind of get into in a minute, that you need to be able the reed needs to be able to stick to your tongue. So if you have a synthetic reed and it's not doing that, then you might want to try cane. But I've never really had a problem with it. So yeah, Stefanie, you want to take it from here?
Sure. Okay, so the first step is getting that suction with the reed, just like Jason pointed out. So if everyone could just take their reeds off their mouthpieces, it can be any size reed, it doesn't matter. Let's talk about the tongue placement first while you're doing that. It's definitely an anchor tongue position. If those of you who are not familiar with anchor tonguing, it's the tip of the tongue is underneath the bottom teeth here. Okay. So you're going to store your tongue there, And then if you can make a noise similar to like calling a horse off the roof of your mouth, creating a little suction, that'll be really helpful, okay? Then you're just gonna form your embouchure and bring the reed in your mouth. And try to grab the reed. So remember, this is from an anchor tongue position. The tip of the tongue is behind the bottom teeth, okay? And remember the horse noise. Like you're calling a horse. You might see the sides of your tongue come up, and that's okay for now. If you're doing the smaller clarinets, we want to minimize that later, but first off, just try to get the suction, okay? If you're having a hard time getting the suction, you can also replace the reed with your finger. You can also just practice with your lip. I know that looks really weird, but it's good practice if you don't have your reed or, COVID, you don't want to touch anything. Anyway, so once you get the reed suction, you can try it on a mouthpiece, just without air, just working on the suction. So I'll give you a moment to go put your reed back on. It's very important here that you're not letting the jaw move. I find that that's the number one problem, especially when I was learning. It took me a good year or two to not squeak every time I did a slap, mostly because I was moving my jaw on the reed. So you have to learn how to just make the tongue move and not move the embouchure, okay? I think most of us have our reeds back on, so let's just practice a couple of pops of the reed. And some of us have a better time of getting it further back in the tongue. We have to learn how to bring the suction more forward in the tongue. Otherwise, you're going to be like here, and that's not going to be practical for playing, okay? You might actually vomit or have a gag reflex, okay? So then the next step, this is probably the hardest part. Once you get the jaw settled and keep it still, is adding that little puff of air. And I always tell people that are working on this, it's slap, then air. So it's just like a little cough of air is the best syllable that I can come up with for teaching it. So you get that grab of the reed and then a little cough of air. I don't know if my sound is okay or not. Can you guys hear that? Okay. So once you get good at that, then the next step would be to try it on a low resistance note on your instrument. You don't want to try something in a high register right away. It takes some refining. You're going to be minimizing the motion of the tongue. You're going to be minimizing the motion of the jaw. And eventually, those higher register notes are going to be easier to slap. So once you get your mouthpiece on your instrument, you can start with some lower notes. And you can just work on low notes and keeping the jaw really still. Then maybe you can start working on some scale patterns. And maybe adding more octaves and getting into your upper register. I think that the lower clarinets or bigger saxophones are easier at first. And then as you get better, you can start working with the little clarinets. And again, this is where it's super crucial that the embouchure doesn't move at all. And so you'll probably just, honestly, I was in the bathroom in the mirror for like a year just watching this part from not moving, okay? And it was a lot of crying and bruised tongue and broken reed and, okay? So just be patient. That's my best advice to you, is being very patient. I've ripped some reeds, so make sure it's not a reed that you're really attached to. Also, your tongue, it can burn. It's built of 9 muscles, just like any other muscle. You can overdo and bruise or hurt yourself. So a little bit goes a long way.
I have made my tongue bleed before.
But I find with the smaller clarinets that jaw motion can really get in your way. So just doing the barrel and the mouthpiece in the bathroom is really important. And making sure that nothing is moving here at all. You're a statue. So start with the reed, then put it onto the mouthpiece, just getting the popping noise. Then the air, adding the air is probably the hardest part. Remember, it's slap then air, okay? Don't try to put the air first or at the same time, or you will get another squawk and you'll be unhappy, okay? So that's basically it. I have some, I'm going to put this in the chat one more time, my guide for those that came in a little bit later, because I know that for privacy, the chat only works when you're in it. And then if people come in later, you can't see what was in the chat earlier. So here's the document again, summarizing those steps. And I think now we're ready to do some breakout room work. So Jessica is going to divide us up, and then we can work in smaller groups and actually listen to what you're doing and give advice on what the next steps might be.